Look, I think Donald Trump doesn't know what to do on this issue. He has flip-flopped on this for decades. He is so proud of the fact that they overturned Roe v. Wade. And we know every time abortion's on the ballot that the pro-freedom, pro-choice Democratic position has won, even in deep red states like Ohio and Kentucky and others. So he is terrified of this issue politically.
The data show that Vice President Kamala Harris continues to dominate the 2024 election, despite Donald Trump's desperate flip-flopping from one position to another on the topic of abortion. And liberal Fox News commentator Marie Harf made that case very compellingly during a recent panel on Fox News, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, as you know, we're big fans of Jessica Tarlov here, the queen of liberal Fox commentators. She has the hardest job in media, but we've also talked recently and long prior about another liberal commentator on Fox called Marie Harf, and she does a very, very good job. She recently appeared on an episode of Fox News Sunday, which is basically the premier, Fox formal interview show. It's hosted by Shannon Bream. She typically hosts a Republican-aligned operative, either a politician or a surrogate, and a Democratic one as well. And for the most part, she's pretty good about asking tough questions of both sides. And then afterwards, she convenes a panel to discuss the interviews and just latest developments in general. After she interviewed Trump surrogate Corey Lewandowski, when we did a video about that yesterday, she convened a panel on Fox News, and one of the panelists was Marie Harf, the liberal commentator in question. And she had some really, I think, powerful truth bombs to discuss, or to drop rather, about the 2024 election to viewers that might not otherwise hear it.
That is fundamentally about policy, and the more they drive at it, the more she'll have to decide, am I going to continue what President Biden pushed forward during his administration, or am I going to depart for it? It's a bit of a catch-22 for her.
Yeah, Marie, how does she do that? Because she was really pressed on Bidenomics by Dana Bash. Like, do you support it? Like, she would use the word. She did talk about, listen, we got a lot of good things done. People can debate that. The polls show people don't think the economy is in good shape right now. She says we got more work to do. How does she walk this line between, I'm part of this administration and the good things that happen, but I'm not if it's not good, and I'm going to do something different?
That's always hard for a vice president, right? That's why we've seen mixed results when vice presidents run for president. But I think what she did the other night, and what she will continue to do, is say, look, we have gotten a lot done. Inflation is down, wages are up, unemployment, especially among certain communities, including the Black community, is really low. But we have to build on that. And she has outlined policies on the economy. She's talked about making housing more affordable, childcare more affordable, education more affordable, healthcare more affordable. She has talked about all of this. And look, this election is shaping up to have the largest gender gap in American history. Every poll is showing that that's where we're headed, in large part because she is talking about a more hopeful future, a more optimistic future, including on things like freedom. And we know that the third or fourth, depending on polls, most important issue that voters care about is abortion and health care. And this week you saw Donald Trump has no strategy to win back women voters. He is flailing on what to do about women's freedom and health care. And Kamala Harris has been incredibly strong on that. Although she's not leaning into it, she's talking a lot about the economy. But that's why the polls, as of today, she is leading in the national average and in many battleground states.
So let's talk.
Yes. I mean, again, just a very compelling case. It's interesting, too, Shannon Bream, the host, again, betraying that she is more conservative than not, certainly more Trump aligned than not. She probably knows where her bread is buttered with respect to Fox News. But this idea that, we can debate on whether or not the economy is good. What's interesting is that conservatives, it was Ben Shapiro who said facts don't care about your feelings, right? Now, obviously, it's really reductive because at the end of the day, most people make decisions based on their feelings. And if they, there's cognitive dissonance. If the facts contradict your feelings, then you just work around those facts. But the fact of the matter is that the macroeconomic data show that the Biden economy is pretty good. And again, that's despite inheriting an economy in tatters from Donald Trump compared to the Trump situation. Trump inherited a pretty good economy from President Obama, who spent 2 terms recovering from the George Bush triggered Great Recession of 2007, 2008. But again, they appeal to feelings. And the reason that I don't, discount that entirely is because, again, the polls show that, generally speaking, Republicans do have a polling advantage with respect to the economy, and Democrats have got to work aggressively to change this narrative. And that's going to be an initiative which is going to span decades, right? If not, or years at the very least. But it's so interesting how they appeal so much to feelings on the matter. And Fox could take a pretty assertive position and say, you know what, people do feel a certain type of way, but you know what, unemployment's down. Unemployment for various cohorts is down. Wage has been outpacing inflation. GDP growth. They could be making the case that yes, people do feel this way, and this is a political obstacle for the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration, and the Harris campaign. But here are the facts. They don't do that. I just love the fact that Marie Harf, she has the facts on her side anyway. So even though Shannon Bream and Fox don't really tee it up for her, she uses the facts to make a persuasive case. She's like, listen, Vice President Harris is the one, particularly with respect to families. And by the way, you'll recall, if you saw the video I did yesterday or the day before featuring Marie Harf, she basically touched on this narrative when she was one of the guest hosts on Outnumbered, which was a separate program, that the vice president has been making, addressing concerns of the American people, particularly for families, a priority in her administration. And she also mentioned the child tax credit, which again, we've talked about, how that was enhanced and passed under the Biden administration on a partisan basis, that the Republicans did not support the enhanced child tax credit, which cut child poverty in half. And as a matter of fact, they refused to renew it as a political cudgel. They didn't want to benefit the Democrats politically or do anything that could be construed as benefiting the Democrats. And so they allowed the enhanced child tax credit passed under President Biden and Vice President Harris to collapse. And then they complained about child poverty growing again under the Biden-Harris administration. Again, it's like knocking over a glass of milk and then pointing at the puddle on the floor and say, wow, I can't believe this kitchen is so messy. Well, you're the ones who made it messy in the first place. And I also like the fact that Marie Harf continues to remind Fox viewers that, in fact, Vice President Harris is in the lead, and there's a reason for that. People can complain that she's not getting too particular on the details of her economic policy, but the fact of the matter is that most Americans, if you look at polls, they don't follow speeches on bullet point by bullet point by bullet point economic policies. As the campaign continues to develop, those things will become available on websites and memos sent to the press. But whatever the vice president's doing right now, it is working. And I think Marie Harf is right to point it out. Another clip.
So let's talk about that, because one of the issues where President Trump has had a distinct advantage all through both the Biden and now a Harris campaign has been on the economy. But that's actually moved. Reuters reports this. They say that Trump's approach to the economy and employment was preferred by 43% of registered voters in their polling compared to 40% who preferred Harris's approach. The prior poll in late July showed Trump with an 11-point advantage on the economy. So she is not, Matt, getting tagged with whatever it seems like people don't like about the Biden economy.
No, and you saw Corey try and do that in the interview just now. I think what you're seeing also are remnants of the convention bump in these sorts of poll numbers, right? She essentially front-loaded the head-to-head bump when she took over the ticket in late July. But what the Democrat convention helped was her image, her favorability around some of these policies. So now it's incumbent in these next 10 days, certainly at the debate, for the Trump campaign to press the case and get those advantages a little bit wider, what they were, say, in early August or late July. That's how they can really, you'll start to see the head-to-head move in some of these battleground states.
Well,
and it's so funny, too, that because that fact is something that no doubt that the Trump campaign is really frustrated about. And if I were a member of the Trump campaign, I'd be frustrated about it as well. But as somebody who opposes Donald Trump and the Republican Party, I think it's hilarious that for once, just due to sheer dumb cosmic luck, the political winds are in our favor on this one issue, which is the vice president is second in command of the incumbent administration. She is President Biden's foremost advisor. It is the Biden-Harris administration. And yet, for all of the rage and anxiety that so many Americans have about the Biden administration, quite frankly, that I don't share and I think is overblown in large part because the media has been quite toxic to the Biden administration. They grade the Republicans on a curve. I digress. But the polls have shown that even though the macroeconomic data is what it is, and it's mostly very good, people are really upset about the current state of things, mostly just due to high prices, right? Over which the president has very little direct control, and certainly not with an obstructionist Congress, because Republicans refuse to work with the president to lower prices. I digress. The bottom line is, despite those feelings, and despite the fact that the vice president is part of the incumbent administration, the sentiments do not carry over for her. People's anger and frustration are with Joe Biden and not Vice President Kamala Harris. And I think it's hilarious that the Republicans are really struggling trying to, associate her with President Biden's unpopularity. And the reason I find it funny is because the same electorate that won't associate the vice president with the president is also the same electorate that looks back on Donald Trump's presidency with rose-tinted glasses. I mean, it's amazing what 4 years has done to convince so many Americans that Donald Trump actually wasn't that bad as far as the presidency was concerned, even though 2020, the most disastrous year in modern American history, was on his watch, right? So I guess what I'm saying is the Trump campaign usually benefits from this sort of dissonance and this sort of, this incongruity, right? But in this one instance, it's working against them. And I just think it's really freaking funny. One last clip from this video.
But to this issue that I talked with Corey about, pro-lifers, Jeff, I mean, in a race this tight, they're really voicing their consternation. And he said, listen, if you vote for Kamala Harris, or if you stay home, that's essentially a vote for Kamala Harris. But they feel on principle, they don't want to vote for someone they feel like is advancing policies they don't think are pro-life.
It's a risk. It's a risk. And it also, I think, in general, goes to show politicians on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, change their positions, alter their positions a little bit to bring in new sets of voters. We saw that with Vice President Harris's discussion on fracking. You're seeing that now with President Trump's discussion on abortion. He stands by and is proud of the fact that his Supreme Court justices overturned Roe v. Wade, but now he's trying a little bit to get some of the women who are walking away from his ticket to come back by moderating on abortion. It's a risk on both sides.
Yeah, and to also saying that he is exploring ways to mandate that IVF be available
right.
and paid for.
Suddenly, the Republican candidate wants a health care mandate when for decades they have run against health care mandates. Look, I think Donald Trump doesn't know what to do on this issue. He has flip-flopped on this for decades. He is so proud of the fact that they overturned Roe v. Wade. And we know every time abortion's on the ballot that the pro-freedom, pro-choice Democratic position has won, even in deep red states like Ohio and Kentucky and others. So he is terrified of this issue politically, but everything we've seen from him in office shows that he will take away women's freedoms, that he will take away women's ability to make their own decisions about their health care, and that anything he is saying now on the campaign trail where he's flailing, first of all, a Republican Congress would never pass a mandate to make government pay for IVF or make healthcare companies pay for it. So this is purely political, and I don't believe it because everything he's ever done in office is exactly the opposite.
Well,
I love it. Love it. She's 100% right. I mean, she is so right to delight in Donald Trump's political misfortune. It's pure cynical political calculus. And he's constantly, no matter where, he is in a situation where it's just mutually exclusive. He has put himself in a situation where there is no way to politically, quote unquote, win. It's just what is the least harmful stance you can take. When he indicated that he would oppose Governor Ron DeSantis' 6-week abortion ban, which is one of the strictest in the country, by voting in favor of the constitutional right to an abortion on the Florida ballot in November, he did indicate that. He infuriated publicly, sparked so much backlash from his conservative evangelical base. And then 24 hours later, because of that, he publicly said to Fox, actually, no, I am going to vote against the Florida ballot referendum. I'm going to vote to uphold Governor DeSantis' 6-week abortion ban, but I still think it's too strict. He has put himself in a position. He is the dog that caught the car. He and the Republicans have put themselves in a politically untenable situation. So I think Marie Harf and others are right to delight in it and to do everything in their power to continue to draw attention to it. And also point out that anybody who wants to complain about flip-flopping Vice President Kamala Harris no longer has any credibility unless they first address the cynical, shameless, pathetic, unparalleled flip-flopping of Donald Trump in a 24-hour spread. Great stuff. Let me know what you think in the comments.